What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So later on today we have State of Play from PlayStation, kind of their own like Nintendo Direct style thing, I guess, like PlayStation Direct. I'll be streaming it here. It's supposed to start at 5 p.m. Eastern or 2 p.m. Pacific, so probably go live like 10 to 15 minutes before just to get everything going. So make sure you check that out if you're curious. We're looking for release dates mostly, and probably, I guess, a few like brand new reveals for PlayStation VR. Maybe a PS4 game, we'll see, but mostly release dates definitely for some of their bigger games. As for today, we have a bunch of stuff to go over. We have to take a little bit of a look at Persona 5. I say a little bit because Atlus is once again doing an announcement for an announcement for an announcement. And we're going to look a bit as to why that might be. And it's kind of interesting to see. As always, guys, enjoy these videos. The like button really helps out. We're actually going to start today with Power Rangers, because we did get release dates for Power Rangers Battle for the Grid. Now, they put this out on Twitter with release dates, and you're looking, depending on which platform you're going to be getting it on, for either a staggered release or like a release on March 26th. So the Switch and the Xbox One will be launching March 26th, whereas the PS4 version will come a bit later on April 2nd. As for PC, we're still waiting on something for that one. That could fall, they said, sometime into the spring, maybe even the summer. So you're going to be waiting a bit for the Steam version, but we'll be able to get this pretty quick. In fact, that's tomorrow. I was a bit surprised. They tweeted this out over the weekend and caught me off guard for that quick announcement for a release date. But from what we've seen with previews and stuff, people actually seem to be enjoying this as a legitimate fighter. So we'll see. They're doing some interesting things, like to get the Green Ranger skin, you have to pre-order it. It's a fighting game. What have we seen with fighting games? You know, we've seen the season passes that are out of control, DLC. So I don't really expect much different from this one, just because it's a new age fighting game, new age by like nowadays. So we'll see. But at least it looks like a pretty competent Power Rangers fighting game. So we'll see if we can check that one out here, actually. Also, do you guys remember Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game? It was on Xbox Live and PlayStation Network. I actually had it on both, I think, at one point. I remember playing it on Xbox Live, on Xbox Live Arcade, and then I played it on PlayStation 3 at one point. But it was pulled, like, randomly, and believe it or not, fans still don't really know why. There was a lot of thought as to it possibly being something with the music. Well, we actually had the people who did the music put out a tweet saying, "Can you guys, Ubisoft and Universal Picks, figure out how to re-release the Scott Pilgrim game so people stop falsely accusing us of removing it from stores ourselves? Gets kind of scary sometimes." That is Anna Monoguchi, who did the original soundtrack and everything, which, I mean, the soundtrack in that game is awesome. And there were a lot of people thinking it has something to do with that, but there is also a theory that there was an issue between Ubisoft and Universal when it came to licensing and everything, as it disappeared a few years ago and hasn't been talked about since. We do know the creator of the game and everything has been pushing super hard. They said it's a big thing for them to figure out. And honestly, if you've never played it, it's a shame, because I don't know if it is going to come back. I wish it would, but it was an outstanding beat-em-up style game. I really, really liked it. I played that and Castle Crashers like constantly. It was really good. And it's nowhere to be found now. So yeah, somebody needs to figure it out. The music was there, the gameplay was there, the visuals. It was just an awesome game overall. So somebody figure it out, because we need Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game, to come back. Hashtag save Scott Pilgrim. We also had an interesting listing for localization pop up for like the first Professor Layton game that you may have played back on the DS. It was, I believe, moved over to Android and iOS as well. But here's the localization listing that you're seeing here. And this is from G4F Localization. And they have it set up for several different languages, including Italian, German, Spanish, and it's for the Nintendo Switch. So this is from 2007, a DS title, Professor Layton and the Curious Village. And I guess it being moved over to the Switch makes sense. I mean, it's a game that some people may have just completely missed on. It's a fun puzzle game from level 5, so yeah, I mean, why not? It's just something else people can try out. And usually when it shows up on these localized sites, generally it means, yeah, something's happening and it's coming over. We've seen this before with other games that have shown up in Japan after popping up on these localized websites. The real question is it going to just be a Japan thing, or is it going to also go everywhere else as well? I mean, the fact that they're localizing into several different languages does hint at it actually going everywhere else as well. So we'll have to keep an eye out for a Professor Layton announcement, apparently. And guys, some of the quick news out of the way. Let's get into the bigger stuff. We're going to start with Persona 5 right away. So we had Atlus put out just an entire teaser, a bit more information essentially for whatever Persona 5 R was. Now, remember, we had that announced, we had a website, they said sometime in March, and then they finished up with the anime, and then they go right into a teaser trailer that appears to show a female character that a lot of us believe will be playable. Like, this would be like their Persona 4 Golden, essentially, for Persona 5, and then it's called Persona 5 The Royal. And when we see this character, we assume that they're going to be friends with, you know, Joker and the Phantom Thieves. No, actually, what they were saying in the trailer is that they don't like the Phantom Thieves. They just don't approve of them. So now we're trying to figure out if there's like a whole nother storyline aside from it that's going to be maybe going on. Is it going to be something that takes place after the game, during the game, and we see it from a different perspective or something, or it's just a full storyline that's kind of added in? It does appear that this would be a playable character, not necessarily an enemy, but I mean, who knows? And what's really interesting about this, one, it appears to only be a PlayStation 4 game for people asking. I know there's a lot of questions about a Switch version of Persona 5, and to that I say, wait till later on this year, obviously. But here's the thing about this. It actually seems to validate a data mine for Smash Bros. And that's what was really weird to a lot of people when we saw a data mine a while ago. Do you remember we talked about the one for like Home Run and Stage Builder and stuff? I'm actually going to show you the tweet here where people found this thing. And yeah, you can see right here from Dr. Hypercake, there is another reference to Jack that I feel should be mentioned. Jack 6C06 V01, and that's for Jane 1 Pony Hair System Shape. This is the first to notice it in the string dump. I've seen some interesting theories about what Jane could refer to relative to Joker. Didn't we just see a female character actually announced here for Persona 5 The Royal? Here's the question a lot of us have now. Okay, so that means that I guess there would be something found there for a ponytail, right? That would make sense for a female character. Is this character that we just saw in this trailer an Echo Fighter for in this case, Jack that we've seen, Joker, Jack in the system code and everything, but Joker? That would make a lot of sense why they are once again saying, tune in at the end of April to find out more information about this game. So yes, they've done it. They've given us an announcement for an announcement for an announcement. That's Atlas. They're very bad at announcing stuff. Or maybe they're very good because we're kind of being strung along for this. Maybe that's just good marketing. I don't know. Either way, a lot of people looking forward to it, and that does seem to lend credence to the data mining that showed that there was Home Run and there was also Stage Builder. That's exciting stuff. And that would actually fall into place the end of April, the big 3.0 update that has Joker come over with, I guess, this Echo Fighter, Stage Builder, and Home Run. That's going to be a whole other reason to go back to Smash right away if you maybe put it down for some other stuff. It's exciting stuff to see there. And we'll see what I guess they have in store for us for Persona 5 The Royal, and then maybe a Switch version after that. We've seen Persona 5S and probably every other letter in the alphabet at this point, but they are definitely not done with Persona 5. We'll say that. Next up, let's talk about a weird move from PlayStation, although it kind of makes sense, to be honest, because I don't really know how many people are actually using this, but it's still something they're taking away from retail stores. So a memo was actually sent to GameStop that mentioned that Sony will no longer be selling digital games through a retail store like a GameStop. It seems to be across the board, not just, say, a GameStop. Like, let me give you an example. I went to a Walmart to buy those games for that giveaway that we did for the 100th episode of Spawncast, and what they did was they actually printed out codes on the receipt, essentially selling me a digital game through the receipt. But Sony doesn't seem to want to do that anymore, and honestly, I feel like maybe a lot of people weren't buying it that way, but that means that through Walmart, when I go there and they have little cards on the shelf, I guess I wouldn't be able to buy those anymore. Maybe to them, they still have to package these things, and the store still gets a cut of it and everything, and they're just like, you know what? Just buy it through the PlayStation Store. Here's the thing about that, though. Now, GameStop was able to advertise that stuff and print out a code, and now I guess you can still buy those PlayStation cards, but there's a lot of things that go into that. One, GameStop makes like zero money on that, so I don't know if they're making anything on the digital games, but they make definitely nothing on the cards, the PlayStation cards, I'll tell you that now. And two, well, this is something they can't advertise now as having the game in store. They would just say, hey, buy this digital code. The reason for like the card, the reason GameStop liked doing that is because of trade-ins. Whereas if you don't see the game you want in front of you, there are, things that suggest that people will just walk away and be like, I'm not going to get a gift card or a card for the store. I don't feel like doing that. You can still do it, but this is obviously Sony backing away a bit from the retail space, saying, well, we don't need to sell digital games to you guys. People just buy them on our store. I know some people don't like punching their credit card information into those stores, and I get that because we've seen them all leak at one point and they've had issues with hacking and stuff. So yeah, I get that. But Sony and GameStop and Walmart and Best Buy are going to be going through some things when it comes to that now. And GameStop's the one that's probably the most affected. Let's be honest here. It's not been easy for GameStop over the last 4 or 5 years, and I don't think it's going to get any easier as we go into things like the all-digital Xbox One, and then we might see a version of that next generation, and as retail stores are going to struggle, not as much Best Buy and others because they have other avenues of making money, but like GameStop just sells really games and then some terrible looking, props and stuff and backpacks, but games, that's their main thing. Sony's taking one of those avenues of revenue away in terms of digital games. Next up, let's talk about Apple for a minute because we've talked about Google doing their Stadia. Well, Apple's talking about their own gaming subscription on phones and tablets, but it's not like a streaming service. This is actually reported by Bloomberg. They're expecting Apple to announce it, I guess, this week, possibly even today, for the Apple iPhone, iPad, and everything. Basically anything that uses their Apple Store. It's a subscription service where you pay money monthly. You get a bundle of games and you're able to play them. They want them to be premium games or games that you normally buy. So I guess kind of think of Game Pass, but for phones essentially. I don't know if they cycle them in and out. Otherwise, that'd be more like games with gold, I guess, and if there's a time limit on them. But the weird thing here is, and I don't think this is a good precedent to set, they want these developers of these games to be paid based on how much time is spent in any one game. That's how they divide them up. So let's say one game turns in, 1 million hours, the other one turns in like 500,000 hours or something of game time from these subscriptions. Well, they would divide them up at that point, 60 or 66-33 or whatever, because it's 1/3 to 2/3. It would be an odd thing to see because, well, developers are going to see that and say, oh, well, how can we make people spend more time in our games that not necessarily means that the game is good, but just takes forever or has no end at all? So you could have, I'm not even kidding, slightly longer load times, grinding in games constantly, more so than before. That's just kind of what Apple would be, I guess, pushing for without actually pushing for it by saying time spent in your game means more money. So yeah, they're going to be rushing it. I don't like the idea of this. I think this is something they're going to play around with and test. But I understand that all of these companies want their own subscription model at this point because it's ongoing. It's supposed to basically never stop, and it's essentially, in some cases, free money. I don't really know if we need it for cell phones like that, right? I mean, they already put in a ton of money on these microtransactions and stuff. I don't know if you need a Game Pass service for phones from someone like Apple or even Google, but we'll see if they announce it and we'll see if it actually works. And our last bit of news, let's talk a little bit about Stadia. And it's a weird situation. So we know Stadia, of course, using AMD's GPU and everything. They threw it up on the screen, 10.7 teraflops. It's amazing. It's going to do some 4K 60 visuals. You can stack them. You can do all this stuff. But what was odd to me was I thought it was using an AMD processor, but it appears that it's not. And I guess if you're not using an AMD processor for a project this large where a lot of processors are needed, you would then go to Intel. See, PC Games N realized this and they said, wait a minute, why aren't they saying anything about Intel? They actually even called in and double checked, and yeah, they're apparently not using AMD CPUs. They're just using AMD GPUs. In fact, during that graphic that they put up, they actually did mention hyper-threading, which does point to Intel CPUs, but why wouldn't Intel be all over the place about this? We saw AMD stock jump massively. I think it was like 15 to 20%, something crazy, because of course they're in business with Google and they're doing all of this stuff with streaming, so they're providing tons of GPUs and everything, making a lot of money. So investors who are all about Google Stadia right now are diving in with fistfuls of cash. Why wouldn't Intel say anything about that? That's a question that a lot of us have. It's actually a pretty serious mystery around Stadia right now. Are people talking about why isn't Intel mentioning that they are providing CPUs? But no one's inherently said it's Intel. That's just really all we can, I guess, take from it is if it's not AMD, it's probably Intel. So maybe, there's a couple things. The biggest thing I think is maybe they're using Intel for now until AMD has maybe their next gen processors ready to go to drop in, and that's what they're going to go with. So the Intel stuff could be like a placeholder. But it's still a weird situation when it comes to this, and they're still looking for answers. Like, PC Games are looking for answers, and it's an odd thing. Just something to keep in mind, because I didn't really see as many people talking about it, and I think it's something that people should be at least questioning and wondering, why isn't Intel, why isn't Google, why isn't even AMD saying, well, they're not our CPUs, or it's Intel CPUs, or it's our CPUs? I don't really know what's going on there, but it's going to be interesting to see why they're not saying anything about it and why they're using Intel rather than AMD. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, make sure to hit the like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it is Persona 5, the Royale, and that data mining. Do you think that means that, yeah, we're getting a bunch of extra features in April, along with Joker, with, I guess, his Echo Fighter, that's this girl? Do you think they're going to have all of this announced all at once in April? And that's why they haven't said as much yet, because she'll be playable technically first in Smash as an Echo Fighter? That's interesting. Or would she just be part of the stage? Or who knows? It's very odd to hear about all this, and it all kind of works together perfectly. So let me know what you think about that one. Make sure you guys also stop by later on today. We'll do State of Play, have some fun, and hopefully see some new games. And see you guys then.